All right, everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive. It's a it's a big week for Barca.
Yeah.
Heading into the final two La Liga matches of 2024, things are heating up at the top of the table, and yeah, we're going to be focusing on Sunday's game against Leganes.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah. But before we get into all of that, I do want to remind everyone to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're dropping new Barca content all the time,
Yeah,
so you won't want to miss it.
definitely not. So much to talk about this week, especially with that press conference.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, lots to unpack there, right?
Yeah, where do we even begin? I mean, it was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest.
Okay, roller coaster ride. I like it. Let's
Yeah.
break it down then. First things first, the La Liga pressure cooker. Barca's clinging to that 1-point lead over Real Madrid Atletico's right behind us. And our form lately has been, well, a little inconsistent to say the least.
Yeah, that Las Palmas defeat at home. Oof, that was a tough one to swallow. And it just goes to show you can't underestimate anyone in this league, not even a team like Leganes, who are down in 17th place.
Yeah, which brings us to our next point. Flick was adamant about this in the press conference.
Yeah.
He demands respect for Leganes. He's not taking this game lightly at all.
No, not at all. He was really emphasizing the need for 100% focus from the players, and he even hinted at some potential rotation.
Oh, really? Rotation roulette, huh?
Yeah.
With Atletico right after Leganes, I can see why he'd be thinking about that. Got to keep those key players fresh.
Exactly. And then there's the Rafinha birthday conundrum. Happy birthday to him, of course. But will he start or will he get a well-deserved rest? Because Flick did mention that he's been looking fresh and energetic in training.
It's a tough one, for
Yeah.
sure. Decisions, decisions. Speaking of tough decisions, what about Frankie de Jong? He's been playing in a more advanced role lately, and it's raised a few eyebrows.
Yeah, the De Jong tactical tightrope, as we like to call it. It's certainly an interesting development.
It is.
Yeah.
What do you make of it? Is it protecting de Jong, experimenting, or something else entirely?
Well, Flick didn't really elaborate too much, which is classic Flick.
Hmm.
But he did make a point of saying that he prioritizes the team's needs over individual preferences.
Interesting. So, reading between the lines, you're thinking he's seeing something we're not, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, some tactical advantage to playing De Jong higher up the pitch.
Yeah.
But he's willing to maybe sacrifice a little bit of individual brilliance for the good of the collective.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on to some good news. Ansu Fati and Andreas Christensen are back in training.
Yes, huge boost for the squad.
And wait for it. Ronald Araujo is back. I repeat, Ronald Araujo is back.
Talk about a boost for the defense. I mean, he's been out for months, and Flick seemed really optimistic about his progress.
Yeah, Araujo's an amazing comeback. That's one for the headlines for sure. So we've got La Liga pressure, potential rotation, a birthday boy, a tactical puzzle, and a returning superstar.
And we haven't even touched on the refereeing situation yet.
Oh, right. Flick versus a Liga refs. The final headline for this segment. That 2-game touchline ban for the red card against Betis. Well, he was asked about it, and let's just say his initial reaction was priceless. He literally burst out laughing.
Oh, I bet. It's like he couldn't believe it himself.
Exactly. But then he gave this very measured response, acknowledging that maybe he needs to control his emotions a bit better on the sideline. But he also kind of slipped in this little dig at what a lot of people see as inconsistent refereeing in La Liga.
Right. He was actually pretty blunt about it. He said he just wants the referees and VAR to make the same decisions in every match, on every bench, not just with Barca.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with that, can you?
Not really. And then when someone tried to push him further, asking if he felt Barca was being treated unfairly, he shut it down immediately. Said he wasn't going to get into a back and forth about it. Classic Flick.
Speak your mind, but don't dwell on it. I like it. But it was interesting that he also praised his players for not complaining about the refs and just focusing on their game.
Yeah, leading by example, wants them to let their actions do the talking.
Absolutely. So what do you think? Is Flick right to call out the inconsistency, or should he just focus on his own team?
I don't know, it's a tough one. What stood out to you from all of this?
Hmm.
Honestly, it's a tough one. On the one hand, I can see his point. There have been some iffy calls this season, and any manager would be frustrated if they felt their team was getting the short end of the stick. But I also think you have to be careful not to sound like you're complaining or making excuses.
Right. At the end of the day, it's about what happens out on the pitch.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, let's shift our focus back to the Leganes match. I'm really curious to see what kind of tactical approach Flick takes, especially given Leganes' defensive weaknesses. They've been struggling to keep clean sheets all season.
Absolutely. They're vulnerable on the counter,
Oh.
and they concede a lot from set pieces. I think Flick will definitely be looking to exploit that. I wouldn't be surprised to see a very attacking lineup, maybe even with all four forwards starting.
Wow. Now that would be a statement. But do you really think he'd risk starting both Lewandowski and Ferran Torres, especially with those Champions League matches coming up?
Well, he did say he wants fresh legs for the Atletico match, right? So maybe he rests one of them against Leganes and starts the other? Or maybe he goes with a 4-2-3-1 Lewandowski up top, Varane and Yamal on the wings, and De Jong in the hole behind them.
That's an interesting thought. Gives him plenty of attacking firepower, that's for sure, while still providing some defensive cover.
Exactly. All right, so enough about the lineup. Let's get to some predictions.
Okay, prediction time. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Flick starts Araujo.
Bold prediction.
I know, right? But I think he's itching to get back out there.
Yeah.
And Leganes aren't exactly a goal-scoring machine.
Yeah, fair enough. I think if Araujo starts, we'll see a clean sheet for sure. I'm predicting a 3-1 win for Barca Lewandowski, with the brace, obviously.
Ooh, a brace for Lewandowski. I like the sound of that. But you think Leganes will score? I'm not so sure. I think with Araujo back there, our defense will be too solid. I'm going for a 2-0 win, clean sheet included.
Okay, confident, eh? Well, that's what makes football so great, right? The unpredictability. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Absolutely. But before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the De Jong tactical tightrope. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole thing.
Yeah.
What do you think Flick's ultimate goal is here?
Yeah.
Is he trying to turn De Jong into a goal-scoring midfielder?
I don't think that's the main goal. No. Turning him into a goal scorer, I think it's more about utilizing his versatility. You know, finding ways to really maximize his unique skill set within the team's overall tactical approach.
Okay, so big picture strategy, not just goals.
Right, exactly. Because, I mean, think about it. De Jong's strengths are his passing, his dribbling, his vision. He can control the tempo, create chances, break down defenses with his movement. And he's so intelligent and adaptable on the pitch.
So you're saying Flick is essentially trying to unlock a new level to De Jong's game.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Playing him further up the field gives him more freedom to roam, link up with the attackers, and really influence the game in that final third.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working, at least to some extent. I mean, he's more involved in the attack, creating more chances. He's even bagged a couple of goals from that position.
True. But he's also been a bit more exposed defensively, right? Which makes me wonder, is this a long-term solution or just a tactical wrinkle that Flick will use in certain situations?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think it comes down to a few things. How De Jong adapts to the role, how the team performs overall with him in that position, and, of course, the opponent. Against a team like Leganes, who are weaker defensively, it makes sense to play him higher up the pitch, to really utilize that attacking potential. But against a stronger team, one that can capitalize on those defensive vulnerabilities, I think Flick might go with a more conservative approach.
Makes sense. So it all circles back to rotation roulette and Flick's tactical tightrope, huh? Sounds like we're in for a lot of experimentation these last 2 matches of the year.
Oh, absolutely. Which is what makes it so exciting, you know? We're seeing a manager who's always evolving, always adapting, always pushing his players to be their absolute best.
Yeah, and speaking of pushing players to be their best, I'm really pumped to see what Araujo brings to the table now that he's back.
Yeah.
I mean, his presence could be a total game changer, especially against a team like Atletico, who are so dangerous in the air.
I agree 100%. Araujo's aerial ability, his physicality, his leadership qualities, all that will be so crucial for Barca in these last 2 matches. Plus, he's just so much fun to watch. You know, that passion, that intensity, it's infectious.
Totally. All right, well, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a little food for thought. Do you think this tactical shift with De Jong is a sign of things to come, or is it just a temporary experiment? And how much of an impact do you think Araujo's return will have on Barca's title hopes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more Barca deep dives.
We'll be back soon with more analysis, insights, and hopefully some celebratory post-match reactions.